Hello, everybody. Spot of Nerd here. And quite interestingly enough, this is the second time I'm actually recording this episode because let's just say the topic I want to discuss is one of those things, you got to be careful, especially today with what you say, what you post, social media, etc., so on and so forth. And if you know me well enough, if you listen, if you watch on YouTube, etc., I like to ride that line. Yeah, I never cross that line, at least in my view. But, I definitely like to make sure, I guess the world knows, my friends, family know that, no, I don't go along with mainstream media. I do not go along with what I'm supposed to be told through social media and things like that. I mean, again, just if you know me, if you listen, you know what I'm referring to because quite frankly, a lot of the reason why I am, in fact, alone, which I find to be, again, probably one of the best things ever in my life right now, is because I have a different opinion, is because I'm not afraid to speak out and go against the grain, and I genuinely hope one day that more people do, because I know you're out there. I swear to Christ, I know that if anything, the majority out there they actually do think differently. They do believe America is the greatest country on the planet. They do have respect for the men and women that serve in our military. But they're just too afraid to say anything because of backlash, whether you're going to be called a racist or a bigot or whatever you want to call it. So I hope I can maybe just, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, I promise you, but I'm not really anybody, and I'm not anybody famous, I guess is the word to use. I'm just some random old person who is doing a podcast and does a YouTube channel. And now that things have kind of evolved, bringing in politics and the agendas of the world, the media, the evil, 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 evil media, here we are. And if I can maybe even just reach one person, or if I can just, if you're listening or watching or something, and if it triggers you and you get pissed, then you get pissed. But hopefully it's the opposite. And some of the points I make actually kind of get you to rethink things in a good way, in a positive way, because let's face the facts. The world, I mean, again, I am one of those conspiracy theorists where they don't call it programming for nothing. Television programming, it's up to you to grasp what is reality and what is basically being poured down your throat. And when I say controlled, I don't mean obviously literally, I just mean metaphorically. You know, the media tells you what to care about this week, the media will tell you what to care about next week, and meanwhile, the rest of the world goes on. I'm not saying that the news has to cover everything. I'm not saying the news has to cover non more important things than others, if that makes sense, specifically what happened in Memphis and things like that. But what I am getting at is, wouldn't it be nice if you actually heard some positive news? I mean, even just right now, I'm a big, if you know me, and actually speaking of that, not to go off of a tangent, but, working in the zoology field, more animals now are coming out of extinction than ever before. Why are we not talking about this? Oh, that's right, because it's not something negative that's going to divide us. Oh, that makes sense now, but, I mean, that's just one example of a million I could tell you, but just, I would encourage you to dig deeper because now that I'm going to get to the point after this little 5-minute intro, god damn, I'm sorry about that. Um, I want to talk about The Last of Us, HBO's The Last of Us, and quite frankly, I am officially done watching it because you can look this information up. There's an article on the Independent, there's articles online. Episode 3 was a good episode. And I want to make sure I'm very clear because, again, this is a very thin line to walk across. The episode was very good, in my view. But the issue is the director has blatantly come out and said that they tried to trick the audience into watching the story that we were provided. And quite frankly, I am not surprised at all. Not one iota. And the saddest truth about it is because, again, you're watching this episode, and it is both sides. I've said this on my Instagram post. They are knocking on both sides of the door. And quite frankly, my viewpoint, it's just not needed. You know, it's one of those things. I'll even give you the perfect example because just to give you a little reference, if you're new to my channel or podcast or whatever it is, but you know, my biggest escape in the world is watching TV and streaming and sci-fi, nerdiness, geekiness, all the above. It really is. So, you know, the rest of the 99% of my life is just, you know, is work and society and people and horribleness and everything in between. And, you know, the way I kind of escape that is through movies and television. So, I mean, I've discussed this many times before. When you start throwing your political media agendas down our throats, you're doing it on purpose. And we know you're doing it on purpose. And The Last of Us director, you can, again, I just want to reference, you can look this information up on multiple articles, has blatantly come out and said, we did this on purpose. And you know what? You can do that because you know what? You're the director. You get to do what you want. But I'm also an audience person, and I can basically tell you, and I can tell you, I can tell my audience, however many that may be, even if it is just one person, that I'm done. I'm not watching it anymore. I've said this before. There is over 50 hours of gameplay about The Last of Us. It is one of the greatest series games on the planet. And this is what you want to focus on? It's not even a bad thing. Let's be very clear, too. Let me give you another example of I'm obviously watching other television shows, and I'm even rewatching some of my other favorite TV shows. Currently, The Walking Dead. Now, I do believe The Walking Dead is genuinely the greatest comic book series that has ever been written, and I do believe the show was one of the greatest shows that ever was, and I'm actually really excited for some of the spin-off series. But it's amazing because I'm actually coming across the first time we actually got to see a gay couple in The Walking Dead. It's when Eric and Aaron first discover Rick's group and they take them to Alexandria. And I'm watching this episode and I'm literally thinking about the third episode of The Last of Us and going, The Walking Dead did it perfectly. And do you know why they did it perfectly? Because they didn't spend an hour and a half telling us about it. They simply have you have the you have one of the characters named Aaron and you have his partner Eric. They're out, they're searching for good people out in the world, trying to survive the apocalypse, the zombies, etc. And they discover Rick's group. Eric gets hurt and they just have a moment together that shows love and interest in one another, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is. And guess what they do after that? They move on with the story. And sure, even throughout earlier seasons and even in later seasons of The Walking Dead, there are other gay couples. There's even people of the LGBTQ community. And you know what they do? Yep, they have a moment, they do their thing, and then they move on with the story. Because there is so much more content that can be addressed, that can be shown in live action than the politics, the agendas, etc. So let me be very, very clear. I have nothing against individuals, same-sex marriage, same-sex partners, LGBTQ, anything like that. But the fact that the director has come out and literally genuinely just told the audience, I tricked you because I wanted you to see this. What are you trying to prove here? It just, again, it's one of those things I don't understand why these people, why these corporations, why these companies, whether TV, television, Hollywood, etc., the media, the news, why do you continue to throw it down our throats? And I'm not even just talking about The Last of Us, clearly. Just look and listen to some of the other stuff I've told you. I mean, my God, we are literally weeks away from World War III. And yet nobody bats an eye. Everybody goes to sleep at night and doesn't lose an ounce of sleep. Your gas prices are going up. Your food prices are escalating. Your housing costs are up. Your electricity is up. People are barely scraping by. But nah, we need to focus on, this or that. And this is, again, referencing what I said in the beginning of this podcast. They are choosing what you will care about this week. They will choose what you care about next week. So my question to you is when is enough going to be enough? Don't even get me started on the COVID aspect. How the fact that the CDC now is saying by having that certain thing, there's a high possibility you might have problems elsewhere, specifically in your body. We told you for 2.5, 3 years, be careful. Just be careful. By all means, it's real. COVID is real. Be safe, be protective, do what you need to do, etc. But we also recommended that you do your research. We also recommended that you just maybe take a tea, make a take. Sorry, verbal diarrhea. Maybe take a step back and go, all right, let's look at the research. Let's see where all this is going. It just, it's one of those things I really do hope one day society and more people open up to and wake up and look at that and just, take that step back, reevaluate, and then decide what they feel is best is the next step. So, in conclusion, I'll keep this, hopefully, just this episode nice and straight to the point, but The Last of Us could have been something amazing. It really, really could. And before you say it, I am fully aware in the game there are same-sex marriage, there are gay folks in there, etc. And I have absolutely no problem with it. Some of my best friends are gay. I know a lot of people I work with are a part of the LGBTQ community, and they are some of the most amazing people on this planet. But you know what? We don't talk about that every other minute, every other day. We don't talk about it because we just want to get to know each other and we want to live the best lives that we possibly can. The best thing I ever heard, and this is again going off on a bit of a tangent, was Morgan Freeman years ago did an interview. It was like one of those 2020 Diane Sawyer type things, Dateline. And the interviewer reporter asked me, like, how do we stop racism? How do we get rid of racism? And the best thing ever, and you can look this up, and I'm not saying word for word, I'm just, general quote, but he literally said, you got to stop talking about it. Does it exist? Absolutely. But you got to stop talking about it. Because you are literally, as I've always said, you look at the way politics are, you look at the way the media is, their entire purpose is to divide us. And you're telling me just over 200 people in Congress decide what, where, and how, and if, and all the other. They decide your life and the lives of 300 million plus Americans. 200 people against 300 plus million. Now, once more, to be very clear, I'm not saying violence is the answer or any other, treasonous act or whatever you want to call it. No, 100% no. But what I am saying is that enough is enough. We need to start voting these people out. We need to start changing for the better. And we need to start living, to be quite frank, better lives than what we are right now. we need to come together as one, and we need to provide real solutions. Venting on Twitter is not going to change jack shit. Posting on your Instagram or whatever it might be is not going to change shit. I've always said this many times before, and this is my broken record moment. Go feed some of the homeless people at the homeless shelter. You know, if you're not a fan of the police, which I am, I do back the blue, go on a ride along. See what their life is like. Donate your own money to something different other than what you see on the television, because odds are that money is ending up in some corporate person, politician's pocket. Do some research, wake up, and start making a better change for yourself and for the world. It is not rocket science. This has been Spot of Nerds TED Talk for the evening. I will leave you with that, folks, but I do, again, I apologize. This episode's not exactly the most positive, shall we say, but I do want to just kind of get that voice out and get that opinion out, I guess. It's one of those where, I don't know, maybe one day this might actually get somewhere, might actually go somewhere, but I do get joy out of it. It's one of my passions. I love talking about nerdiness and sci-fi and everything fictional. And like I've said, just to reiterate, when they start throwing the agendas and the politics in there, it just ruins it. It really does. So, and the fact that they're now just blatantly telling us that, yeah, we're doing it on purpose now, it's just sad. It really is. It's pathetic and it's sad because you can do it so much better. And there are so many examples I can provide you of them doing it better. And by them, I mean Hollywood or other television series like I've just mentioned with The Walking Dead. So with that said, thank you all so much for watching and listening. If you would be ever so kind, subscribe it, comment, like, follow, everything in between. Share to anybody you can. If you hate this, then you know what? Thanks for listening this far and watching. If you love it, thank you. Seriously. Even that one or two people that may watch this or listen to this, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Until next time, folks, we will see you next time. Later, y'all.